Okay, so bone dry clay is when your clay is completely dried out or as dry as it possibly can be, and the water has evaporated out of it as much as it can, and it's super, super dry. It's very dusty. It's dusty feeling. You can get some dust on your hands. And it just looks and feels very dried out. Now, it's very important to remember when your clay is in this stage, this bone dry stage, it is very fragile because there's hardly any water in it. So much of it has evaporated that there's very little water in here holding it together. And so that makes it brittle and that makes it fragile. And so the least little thing can damage your clay in this state, and most times 9 out of 10, it's impossible to fix it. So when your clay is in this stage, you really want to leave it alone. If you don't have to touch it, if you don't have to move it, that's great. When you're actually in the classroom, I'll tell you, don't touch this. I should be the one to move it from its location into the kiln, and that's that. Okay, so that's the key thing to remember about bone dry clay. The other thing to remember is that your pottery, your project, has to be in the bone dry state before I can fire it. If I fire it too soon and there's a good amount of moisture left in it, it can explode in the kiln, because what'll happen is it gets hotter and hotter in the kiln. The water will begin to boil, and then it'll want to evaporate after it boils, and it'll just explode your project. So we really have to wait for it to get to this state. Depending on the weather, depending on the humidity in the room, that can take anywhere from a few days to maybe a week. It also depends on the project too. So we just have to be patient. Have to be patient and let it get 100% bone dry before I can fire it. So it's just important. It's very, very important. Oftentimes the bottom part is the last part to dry. So that is what bone dry clay is and what it looks and feels like.